everyone. As Ravi mentioned, I work as the Multicultural Projects Coordinator for Victoria, managing some projects in Victoria and also some nationally for the AFL. But bit of a background and very relevant to today's discussion, I guess. I've been pretty active in the India-Australia sports exchange space for over 12 years now, working with DFAT, Australian High Commission in India, and even Victorian government. Bit of a background, I've been in Australia for only 4 years now, but before that, I've led the formation of a National Federation of Australian Rules Football in India. It's called Australian Rules Football Association of India, or AFL India. Bit of a history, in 2008, Ricky Ponting, the former Australian cricket captain, launched the sport in Calcutta, where I'm from originally, and that's how I was introduced to the sport. I then went on to be picked in the first Indian team, the team representing India in the sport in 2008, and traveled to Australia, and was an amazing experience to play at all the cricket grounds that host footy in the off season. So it was an amazing experience, and when I went back, I thought, why is India missing out on this amazing, fascinating, visually spectacular sport? And that started the journey, where we started off from 100 players in one state to today we have, AFL India has introduced 20,000 participants across 11 states in India. In 2016, AFL and Essendon Football Club brought me out to Australia, and I've been working since then in the multicultural space and trying to grow this bond between India and Australia through not just cricket, but of course now Australian football, and very interestingly, I must mention Kabaddi as well. In 2016, we helped form the first Australian Kabaddi team with former AFL retired players who represented the country. Now, probably that was a bit of my background. I'll come to the sport now. So AFL, as some of you might already know, is a very old, unique Australian sport. It celebrated 150 years in 2008. So basically, the first game of Australian football was played back in 1858. The game has evolved, but originally it was developed to keep the cricketers fit in off-season. And as you might know already, the sport has multiple skills required from multiple sports. So basketball, volleyball, rugby, and many other sports, and even soccer. So the game is very unique. In Australia, from March to September, famous cricket grounds that you might be aware of: Melbourne Cricket Ground, Sydney Cricket Ground, the Gabba, the Wacker in Perth, Adelaide Oval, all these great cricketing venues actually host Australian football matches from March to September. The pitch in the middle of the ground is taken off, and then the football posts are planted on the two ends of the ground, and it becomes an AFL stadium. The game requires 44 players in total in a match, so that's probably the highest across any sport. And we will show you an introductory video that will probably take you through the brief and explain the sport. Well, I'm guessing there might be audio.
Yeah, there definitely is audio issues, but that's fine. It shows the intensity of the sport even without the audio. That's just amazing.
All right, no worries. I'm guessing the audio isn't working for everyone, but I'm happy to kind of take you through the overview. As you might have already seen on the video, the game is played on cricket ovals, which includes 2 teams of 22 each, 18 aside on ground. So that means there are 4 substitutes, but like basketball, there are rotating subs. So you can come in and go out multiple times during the game. It involves skills from multiple sports. It starts like basketball, then you hold the ball like rugby and you run, then you do a short pass like an underarm volleyball serve, or you do a long pass like a football goalkeeper would kick from the goal. The scores are based on how you kick through the 2 tall posts in between, you get a 6 points, and then there are 2 shorter ones. If you kick through them, you get a 1 point. And the final scores are very often around the average of 100, because the scores are calculated in how many 6s and how many 1s you've scored. So if you've scored 5 6s, that's 30 points, and you've scored 10 1s, you've got another 10, so the total score would be 40. So yeah, basically that was about the sport. Now going on to AFL internationally, which at the moment my fellow panelist Nat manages. Australian football, as I mentioned, has been there for over like nearly 160 years, but very recently in the past 40-50 years, it has started spreading internationally with a lot of Australian expatriates who travel abroad and settle down. They want to play the sport that they have been playing back home, and it has developed over 50 countries around the world, including over 20 in Europe itself. AFL International has got 2 unique international bodies, AFL Europe and AFL Asia set up in the recent years, which is managing the development of the sport in those continents. And I'll probably come down to AFL Asia, aligned to our discussion today. Unique countries like India, Indonesia, Japan, Pakistan are countries which are leading in the space of having the local people of the country playing the sport, along with many other countries in Southeast Asia where a lot of expats play the sport as well. As you can see on the screen, in Australia, in the AFL League, which has got 18 clubs playing from across the country, there are multiple players who are of international origin, who are either born or have their parents born in these multiple countries from around the world. Josh, I might go into AFL India a bit more detail. All right. Now, AFL India, as I mentioned, Ricky Ponting started it in 2008, and the federation started growing the sport through grassroots sport for development approach. And Steve Waugh, the former Australian cricket legend, was our ambassador for the first ever national championship of AFL India held in 2012. That was held in Kerala, down south of India. Ever since then, the game has grown rapidly across the country, with the eastern and the southern part of the country as major hubs of the sport. On the top left corner of the screen, you can see a gentleman in the grey and the black. His name is Kevin Sheedy. He's one of the biggest legends of the sport in Australia. Probably you can compare it with a Pele of soccer. AFL India was very fortunate to have him visit India and supervise the development of the sport in the country, and also kind of pick some talented players who came out to Australia for the AFL International Cup. Now, AFL International Cup is the amateur World Cup of the sport, which is held every 3 years in Australia, hosting 18 to 24 countries from around the world, which India has been participating in since 2008. And here are some visuals of some of the competition in India, with the Indian captain Mahesh Tirki in the middle, jumping up to mark the ball. Yes, it was initially driven by the International Kabaddi Federation and Star Sports from India, but I guess slowly I found the synergy between AFL players who start pretty early compared to a lot of sports back in India, where AFL players would start their elite careers at 16 and might retire by 28, 30. But in Kabaddi, like in 2016 World Cup, the Indian captain was 40 years old. So that kind of surely presents an opportunity for AFL players to have another career in another sport after they've retired from AFL. So I thought that was a great opportunity where the AFL players are already very fit and active, kind of slowly transition into the Indian sport of Kabaddi.